Moinsen Freunde der Sonne, willkommen zu einem neuen Video auf diesem Kanal. Ich habe tatsächlich heute durch Zufall ein unglaublich schönes Video gefunden von meinem Berufskollegen reagiert. Und der war tatsächlich, naja, sehr pfiffig, muss ich sagen. Denn er hat sich mal überlegt, Mensch, lass mal Triple Screen, VR und Ultrawide miteinander vergleichen. Und ich habe keine Ahnung, wie er das gemacht hat, aber mich würde das mal sehr interessieren, auf welche Art und Weise dort getestet wurde und was dabei rausgekommen ist. Also lasst uns da mal reinhüpfen.
I've tested 34-inch ultra-wide 165 Hz versus triple 32-inch 144 Hz versus 90 Hz VR Valve Index and got some very unexpected results which went beyond my personal expectations, but let's start from the beginning. Introducing first the different setups. On one side we have the ultimate triple screen setup using the 𝗬𝗢𝗡𝗢𝗢 active pedals, 32 Nm extreme lead bass from V&M, the motion from 𝗘𝗗𝗜𝗧𝗢𝗏 system QS210 and 𝗘𝗗𝗜𝗧𝗏 system belt tensioner. With all the additional button boxes, displays, nets and different covers, this build is made to give as close as it can get to the VR world, and even if that's impossible, somehow feels close to that to some extent, of course. On the other side, I have the Track Racer 160S V2 with, again, active pedal, the 18 Nm DD bass from Conspeed, on which I will use the 34-inch ultra-wide and the VR Valve Index. So, the four main differences I want to explore are 1. Driving and comfort, 2. Car control, 3. Immersive experience, and 4. Lap times, speed, and consistency. I have to warn you, the results are total mess and definitely blow my mind. I didn't see that coming, and to be honest, I'm not personally very happy, subjectively speaking, with the numbers. So, to be as fair as possible to each experience, I chose Sebring, which is the track I test the most with all of the gear and set totally fixed conditions on iRacing test. Absolute mirror conditions with zero variables. Next.
Witzigerweise, und das habe ich mir jetzt nicht bei reagiert angeguckt, ich tendiere auch immer mehr zu Sebring. Früher war es immer Spa, dann war es Le Mans und jetzt ist es Sebring geworden.
I choose setup from iRacing, which is made for different track, and pull back the brake base to almost zero, which make the car oversteer and not very comfortable to drive. Then I give to each experience 1 hour of practice, restart the session and run 50-liter stint with maximum concentration and clean laps. Again, in terms of preparation and track conditions, everything is as consistent as it can get across the three experiences. That being said, let's start with the first point, which is comfort, and no surprise there, VR takes the last place by a margin. Even if the Index is one of the comfortable headsets and I'm very used to it, the amount of sweat I'm pulling out is absolutely crazy. Driving all day long.
Oh, aber hier, the amount of Gewichte, da ist aber auch ordentlich was drin, der reagiert, wenn ich das hier mal so sehe. Schöne Arme. Muss man ja auch mal sagen. Man muss Menschen nicht positiv daran fördern. Gut, lassen wir das.
Pulling out is absolutely crazy. Driving all day long with this setup is exhausting, and even doing this for years in the most competitive environment in iRacing, Rallycross World Championship and other important races, I never got used to it and had to change clothes, gloves and even socks after each run. However, in terms of awareness, comfort, and vital, turning my head around and judge distances is by far better than in the triple screen setup, which put the ultra-wide the worst in that category. That being said, the visual smoothness of the picture from the ultra-wide screen is brutally noticeable, and that buttery smooth experience is on completely different level. Driving with the ultra-wide for hours and jumping on VR or even triples, it feels like I'm driving on pictures. I just realized that each setup has strong advantages and disadvantages. VR is the worst in terms of physical comfort and smoothness experience, even in stable 90 FPS, which I'm getting, but is the best from awareness point of view and distances judgments. Ultra wide, on other hand, have the smoothest visual experience but the worst awareness, and the triples have second place from awareness and second place from visual smoothness. Unfortunately, as everything in life, there is no perfect world. Each of those setups have strong and weak points, and no matter which way we go, we will lose something. Moving to the next very important point, which is car control. I told you I drove on difficult to drive setup for a reason. With the ultra wide and the triples I had zero problems having full control of the Dizee setup and rarely had to correct, oversteer or even rarely activated traction control. I definitely felt in total control the entire time in the 1 hour practice and in the 30-minute stint. I can't say the same for the VR. In the 1 hour of practice with the VR, I spun many times and got quite frustrated. For some reason, I couldn't control well the car and my reactions were not in sync for sure. There was some delay between what I see and what I feel through the base and many times lost control, but the biggest twist of the story is coming with the actual stint in VR, which totally blow my mind. Things I refuse to admit, but numbers are way stronger than my personal feelings. I will reveal the end results soon, but in terms of pure car control, ultra wide and triples beat VR by a margin. Next point is the immersive experience, and I don't think I need to explain that VR is unbeatable, and no matter how crazy immersive my triple screen setup is, VR just put me in the actual car on the actual track. No flat picture will be ever capable to make you believe you are in the real world, and no comparison here. VR is just in completely different league.
Yeah.
That category was unquestionable, but now let's move to the most weird results I didn't see coming. Lap times in 50-liter stint plus consistency. First goal was with the ultra wide in.
Das ist, um hier kurz mal was dazu zu sagen. Ich habe ja nun auch schon alle 3 Welten für mich ausprobiert. Und ich fahre ja relativ häufig hier an meine Teststation, um Sachen zu testen. Jetzt momentan zum Beispiel die neuen Azitec-Pedale. Und da geht ja auch immer ein bisschen Zeit rein. Und ich muss wirklich sagen, es ist schon ein Unterschied, ob du 160 Frames hast oder ob du, keine Ahnung, so schwankende Frames hast. Ne? Also trotz G-Sync merkt man das ja irgendwie immer noch. Aber ich würde wirklich für kein Geld der Welt, wirklich für keines, würde ich meinen Triple Screen wechseln. Für kein Geld der Welt. Also ich würde weder Ultra-Wide fahren. Ich bin gespannt, also ich würde gerne nochmal den ganz großen Samsung testen, der 52 Zoll, wie das dann nachher so ist. Und das ist ja auch schon wirklich eine sehr große Bildfläche. Aber selbst VR, und das ist, vielleicht ist mein Körper da auch einfach nicht gemacht, dieses ständige Gewicht auf dem Kopf und dieses Abgeschlossensein von der Welt da draußen ist für mich immer so ein bisschen fast schon ein Minuspunkt. Also ich weiß nicht, also man müsste mal von mehreren Menschen so ein Fazit ziehen. Also, ne, wenn ihr jetzt mal reinschreibt, was ihr so präferiert, weil ich gehe mal davon aus, dass einige von euch da ja auch schon vielleicht alle Welten ausprobiert haben, wie ihr das Ganze seht. Ich finde, also VR ist super immersiv, logischerweise. Du bist ja genau drin, ne? Aber das Gewicht, was immer auf deinem Kopf drauf ist und das Bild in der Brille selber ist ja schon sehr stabilisiert dafür. Also schon, ja, weiß nicht. Das ist schwer.
Which I felt very comfortable in terms of car control and consistent driving. Small mistakes, of course, here and there, but almost all laps within half seconds in 13 lap stint with best time under just 2 minutes. I really felt like it was decent stint, of course not perfect, but absolutely fine. Next was the VR run, and just to give you context, most of my iRacing success and titles I've got was switching to VR, and I'm as familiar with it as with the triples. However, in that hour practice, I had zero confidence with that setup and I spun many times. The hour practice ended with me being super frustrated, so I just decided to survive and see how bad will that go. So I back off in the first 2 laps a lot, but for my surprise the times matched the first 2 laps in the ultra wide. That gave me a bit of confidence to push, and while seeing tons of mistakes on each lap, I start improving the times running consistently under 2 minutes. One weird thing is, while in ultra wide I felt okay in terms of car placement, and in VR mostly all over the place, seeing my wrong lines, the lap times were giving the exact opposite information.
Okay,
Till
krass.
the end of the session, I was mostly half second faster per lap, and in total almost 5 seconds faster in that stint.
Wow.
That is not the result I wanted to see for so many reasons. I told you before, most of my success comes switching to VR, winning some difficult titles in my primes, but I also lose some because of weird issues crashing the sim or even restarting the system. Also, all of the 24 hours events ended in disaster, killing not just my work, but the hard work from another 4 people who have prepared hard for those races. It is not just that I sweat like a pig. I can live with that. I lost confidence racing in VR as it had let me down badly several times and screwed the hard work of my friends. So, those lap differences here are absolute disasters for my mentality. To find out why I feel way more in control with the ultra wide, but all over the place in VR and still way faster, I record the replays and check my car placement. I can clearly see how my VR lines are way better even if it feels different. My only reasonable explanation is in VR my brain receives 3D information and makes better judgment of scale and distances, and the very small mistakes are very pronounced, while in that ultra wide flat picture my brain calculates poorly the car placement.
Ich würde das auch ausprobieren. Ich möchte das jetzt auch gern wissen. Ich bin ja immer so für Experimente zu haben und ich teste ja auch immer gerne sehr viel. Ich glaube, wir gehen da mal rein. Ich möchte 𝗬𝗢𝗓𝗏 seine Praxiserfahrung auch mal austesten, ob ich das unterstreichen kann. Damit man 2 Testergebnisse hat. Wärt ihr daran interessiert? Ich sehe uns da. Ich sehe uns da.
Those are very disappointing result for me personally, but was time to jump in my ultimate triple screen setup and see where that will lead me.
Jetzt bin ich gespannt.
This is totally different setup, and the amount of feedback is on completely different level with that extra motion and belt tensioner system. The feedback from those two is not about immersion, but actual useful information for the level of grip and micro locks, which helps me understand the car behavior in real time and adjust my driving accordingly. Again, 1 hour practice and I jump in the stint. The first lap was absolutely identical with the VR and the ultra wide, but then everything changed. The amount of confidence in that car control is on completely different level, and the consistency hit perfection. Lap times consistently under 2 minutes and almost all within a tenth. By lap 10, I pull ahead few seconds from the VR because of the consistency and drove on the edge because of the rich information coming from the crazy feedback from everywhere. In lap 11, pushing the limits, I overhit the tires and finally lost control with that difficult setup, and then surprisingly I couldn't finish lap 13, which means somehow I burned more fuel with that driving.
Oh.
Those times in that stint give me hope, even if my fastest lap was in the VR, but the consistency was superior in that rig. However, I don't think the triples are the reason for the consistent laps, but the amount of information I was getting from that rig. To be honest, I'm afraid to test the VR in that rig because if I'm faster with it, will be very bad news for me mentally speaking. I cannot trust VR as it let me down a few times badly, but I also don't want to think I'm faster with it, but use triples. What do you think, guys?
Nö, also ich würde es schon jetzt mal sehr gerne sehen, wie du in dem Rig mit VR fährst. Ja, doch, das möchte ich sehr gerne sehen. Ich überlege halt gerade innerlich, wie schnell diese Zeit ist. Ich habe gerade keine Vergleichszeit, weil ich schon sehr lange keinen GT3 mehr gefahren bin in Sebring. Aber ich würde den, komm, wir machen den Test auch, Leute. Ich teste das auch mal. Ich habe ja auch Triple Ultra Wide, wir testen das mal. Das ist eine gute Idee. Doch, da sehe ich uns.
Should I try VR in that rig or let it go and live with the hopes I'm good enough with the triples?
Nee.
Happy racing, everyone.
Ich möchte den Test sehen. Aber ohne Witz, ihr müsst euch mal überlegen, da sitzt jemand nur, also wirklich nur, um ein Video aufzunehmen, 3 Stunden, um zu fahren. Plus, minus. Und dann muss das ja auch noch alles gebaut werden und eingerichtet werden. Das waren locker über 5 Stunden, nur um Videomaterial zu sammeln. Und dann war noch nicht mal, da war ja noch nicht mal das Skript geschrieben, die Comparison, also der Vergleich und so. Wow. Was für ein toller Test. Da habe ich noch nie dran gedacht. Aber das ist natürlich auch für euch da draußen ja super interessant, weil sowas könnte euch ja helfen bei der Entscheidung, was ihr kaufen möchtet und was ihr nicht kaufen möchtet. Also wirklich wild. Aber mich würde mal interessieren, wie ihr das seht. Seid ihr so, in welcher Nische, nicht in welcher Nische, aber in welchem Team seid ihr? Triple Screen, Ultra Wide oder sogar VR? Lasst mich das gerne mal wissen. Das würde mich mal interessieren. Und ob ihr Bock habt, dass ich den Test auch mal mache. Durch 𝗬𝗢𝗡𝗡𝗢𝗏 jetzt inspiriert. Dankeschön, dass ihr mir eure Zeit geschenkt habt und mit mir gemeinsam das Video angesehen habt. Ich wünsche euch allen da draußen einen fantastischen Tag. Lasst es euch gut gehen. Wir sehen uns im Discord, im Livestream, bei Instagram, auf der Homepage. Ich sag ciao, du sagst Kakao. Bis denn, Dansen.